Dead Scared Entertainment takes pleasure in presenting Verda Darano, a journey into the phantasmagoric lands of folklore, literature, theater, and film. In the centuries-old tradition of the Romani people, we bring to you stories of superstition, fantasy, and adventure. There's no turning back. The Verda approaches.
Latchi Ratyi Miro Amal. Good evening, friend. I am as Makalai. I had a feeling you'd come by. The fog has blanketed the path before us, as the woods creak and moan their wishes for daylight. Shadows of unknown origins move swiftly, catching a pulsating glance out of the corner of our eyes. Who knows what may lurk around each corner? This must sound like a horror picture to you, Amal. I hope the chills down your spine haven't convinced you to switch your dial just yet. Our dear friend tonight hasn't even blinked. Who might we have with us? Why, it's Piroska Racz. Try and scare her with a 7-foot-tall, red-eyed, 3-tentacle phantom from beyond. 2 words. No dice. But there are such things that can make her, myself, and surely you, retreat like a bolt of lightning. Don't believe me? Here's a little poem for you. Beware the monster 2 blocks down. It's waiting round the corner for you. Its smile is friendly with 2 warm eyes, eyes of crystal blue. You've known them since forever, and never seen their hidden skin. Yet only when they've grabbed you firm, will they show you their bloody, fang-ged grin.
Latchi Ratyi Dead Scared Entertainment, thank you so much for tuning into Verda Darano once more. As we inch ourselves closer to Halloween, I can't tell you how exciting it is that we're getting better and better guests as the days go along. And I mean this, we are talking about a giant that we are going to be speaking with today, my good friend, Piroska Racz. She has been involved with Dead Scared Entertainment from the beginning, helping Raquel and I with so much of the little nuances that we needed to really make this experience full circle and the real deal. She is a singer, a dancer. She is extremely intelligent when it comes to knowing the worldwide view, the worldwide scope of our culture as a whole. And it is nothing but an honor and a privilege to have this lady on with us today. And I cannot wait to get into this conversation. So Piroska, how you doing?
Oh, great. And thanks for having me, Pearson. Thank you for the kind, wonderful introduction words. I appreciate that.
Of course. I couldn't imagine anybody else during this season to kick this off that I wanted to have on the show than you. This is, and I mean this because you and I have had so many conversations beforehand, whether it be through Messenger or through phone calls like this, then just so much was discussed, and it blows my mind just how much we share as a people in our life experiences, as well as how little we know about the Romani people as a whole. And I'm so glad that you have this great overscoping view of this all and having knowledge about practically everything from what I'm seeing. I've yet to meet somebody who's more knowledgeable about our culture than you. And I am just so glad to have you on today. But let's get started with, where everybody starts. Let's start from the beginning. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So My questions to you, just to kind of get things going, is well, where did you grow up, and what was your experience like growing up Rom? What were some positives and negatives?
Okay. Okay. I grew up, I've been in New York all my life. I grew up part of my life in Queens County. It's one of the suburbs. I was born in 1953, and my family came from Europe. Daddy's part in the 1800s, Mommy's part around 1900 from Hungary. And growing up, I will say that we always were a very small family. We still are. Not tons and tons of kids and cousins and things like that. And we were always very low key about ourselves being Roma. We were proud, and but it wasn't advertised. They came. They wanted us to fit in. So you say you're something, or you just say you're Hungarian American, and that's it. Mm-hmm. The rest of it wasn't necessary to bring that up to anybody. Of course, when I was in my early teens, I stood out a little bit because the way that I look, the way that I dress, not that old-fashioned, thing from Europe, but I always dressed a little bit different than the other girls, never looking like them. My interest was different. My ways about myself was different, and they didn't know about being gypsy, but I was called not so nice names. A lot of time I was referred to as a snake charmer. And and as far as the word gypsy, back in those years, 53, I was born, and for decades after that, the Roma, we always used that word. And a lot of other people, it wasn't considered anything bad. That we use the word gypsy a lot more than Roma. We started, for me, my thinking, we started using Roma in very recent years because others thought that it wasn't so nice. But I think like any other word for any race or ethnic group, it's not really, it can be what you say, but it's also how you say it. Mm-hmm. This is my thinking, though. But I like I said, grew up in Queens. Nice. Just outside of the city, we got Queens, we got Brooklyn. I'm sure you've heard of the Bronx. Course. So our place was Queens, and for a little while on Long Island.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning, and I know you have some very interesting stories coming from Long Island. But now that you mentioned like the different neighborhoods, the different boroughs, I think I'm not from I don't know enough people from New York besides yourself, so maybe I'm referring to them wrong. But essentially, where you were in Queens, were there a lot of other Roma, or was it essentially just your family?
There was, but it was the other kind of Roma, Vlahiki, mm-hmm. And there weren't really a lot of us. And growing up, Mommy and Daddy and the schools we went to, it was always a mixed neighborhood, and so we grew up socializing, Mommy and Daddy too. Their friends, the dinner parties, was all kinds of people. And that's good in a way. So really, I don't think there was that many Roma, our kind, the Romungre, the Sinti, not really. I think that started happening, I'm going to say, after They started coming in 1956 when Russia invaded Hungary. Then we started getting a lot of them in here, but they was going to Manhattan. We weren't living in Manhattan at that time. I wasn't. And since they were newcomers to the country, they didn't speak English. Mommy was grown. She grew up. She could understand Hungarian, but she couldn't speak it. Her folks, Papu and Baba, they spoke Hungarian when they didn't want anybody to know what they were saying.
Yeah.
But Mommy understood it anyway. But like I said, we kept to ourselves. We were proud of what we are, where we come from, but we kept it low key. And I still do to this day. I think I do.
So one thing that makes you a little bit more different than a lot of the other people that we've had on the show so far is the fact that you grew up in a very creative household. What was that like?
I want to, I think I mentioned on YouTube to you the other day, we call ourselves, Romungre, Musicus Roma, Majority Roma, that kind of a thing. But, not all Roma, musician Roma, if that's our clan, not all of us will become musicians. Not everybody can be a musician. I'm not the first one. Almost all of us had some kind of a music talent or artistic talent. Mommy, and I just posted something a little while ago. Mommy learned classical piano. She was a professional classical ballerina until she married Daddy. And one brother plays classical piano. The other brother and sister, no things. And then me, I sing, I dance. I also draw cartoons, as you know.
I love them.
And even, I'll tell you, I remember in the 1960s, and we always had the Steinway piano in our living room. One time, I was upstairs and I heard somebody playing classical. And so I thought, oh, maybe it's Mommy, maybe it's Gary, the brother who plays. I come down, I'm taking a peek from the stairs. I didn't know that Daddy could play classical piano.
Wow.
He never told you. This is what I mean by low key. We don't go bragging, well, I do this, I do that. But it was a shock, but it was great. You know what a treasure your own family is with the gifts that they got that, nobody, and we don't have to advertise it, but it's great. It's a good feeling. It makes you feel even more proud. Don't have to go and, for ourselves to advertise it, but we know that it's there, and nobody can ever take that away from us. Not now, not ever.
So true, so true. And it's funny you say this too. And it's funny that what I noticed is the fact that you mentioned classically trained, and I love the fact that you mentioned this because a lot of people, a lot of times it could go both ways. I realize there are some Roma that I've learned that do very well in a very regimented, tried and true, classically trained programs in terms of learning music or dance or whatever it may be. Some Roma do well just sitting with their family. I know that's my case in this case. Just sitting and kind of like going back and forth with instruments, essentially they're copying each other, or riffing back and forth from each other based on whatever it is that we're playing. And did you ever have a moment where you kind of seen the classical training and the Romane sound of the music and like that Romane creativity kind of mesh? Do you have a story or something that you can remember where those two kind of combined for a moment?
Not too often, because in those years, it wasn't expected. It wasn't really done in those years, those decades. People, outsiders, Gaje, weren't really familiar with, Romani music, really. And so they expected a certain kind. I can give an example of myself.
Sure.
Back in around 2000, 2001, I remember there was a Russian-owned nightclub in Queens, owned and operated mostly by Russians who were actually Jewish people from Uzbekistan. And me and some of the musicians from Eugene Hootz's group,
Yeah.
we were hired to play some Roma music there for the New Year's Eve thing. And, great, you've heard my singing. You've seen my videos for my dancing.
Yes.
You know how I'm very raw, down to earth, and no stereotypical type of thing. I think that's my style. No stereotypical nonsense. And so we got there, and we walk in, and the other group of Uzbeki musicians had just finished their gig. I thought everything was going to be okay. We set up, and it came my turn to sing. And of course, I'm singing something in Romani, something that's not their schlocky, Russian style. You know what I'm talking about. Those silly. And so the people, only that time I was looking around at their faces, and they looked so angry. So I did my song, I did a dance, and the part in my dance where I do that Turkish drop where I'm back, I hit the floor. You've seen that, yes?
Yes, I have, yes.
It's called the Turkish drop. Son of a gun, don't you know when I did that, I looked up and I didn't even know they had mirrors all over the ceiling. So I did it, and I'm looking at myself on the Turkish drop, dancing and doing this move where I'm completely down on the floor. I got back up. I finished. The guys, I was the only, Roma member of the group. There were maybe 4 of us all together. And they were not happy about what we performed. Barely anybody clapped, and I was mortified. I was also angry. What they were expecting were those stereotype Russian gypsy shows. I think I've sent you videos of what they look like. The costumes and the, this is what they wanted. This is what they thought that they were going to get. And they didn't get it. We got paid, and they paid good. Mm-hmm. But I was mortified because that never happened before. Never. So, you mentioned the classical. So, I consider the old school Romani music to be classical in my mind. Maybe not somebody else.
No, I see where you're coming from. I do. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it's funny um how so many times you'll be going on gigs and naturally you're carrying yourself with with class and and then professionally. And it's just so strange to see how you're there basically putting your heart on your sleeves essentially out there for these people in order to to entertain them, and just sometimes you end up in such sticky situations with these crowds,
Yoy,
you know
yoy.
yeah. And it's
Yeah, that was really, really the worst night I can ever remember in all my 50 years of performing. That was the worst time, the worst gig.
wow, that's something. And you know what,
Yeah.
hopefully, because I know are you still performing now? Because I know things have calmed down because of the pandemic. Naturally, it's calmed down for all
Once
of
in a
us.
while, I have the private gigs, which I've done all my life since my teens, weddings and the birthday parties and stuff like that. The venues were a few. The longest I ever was at one was that one here in Manhattan. I was there for like 10 years. But other than that, and even during those years, I was still doing my private gigs. I would never stop doing them because that's where the real money is. And, the people who hire you, they treat you with respect. You're treated well. You can name your own price. It's a totally different atmosphere and treatment than many, if not most, of the venues, at least in my experience.
No, I completely understand that. You're right. Because in my case, even when I played private venues or no private gigs, and then like now went to some of these venues, the pay is it's night and day. If you go to a lot of
Oh,
these
yeah.
restaurants and
Yeah.
these bars, they're paying you $20 for 2 hour sets. They're paying you $50 for a
God
whole night.
almighty, yoy.
And there's so many talented musicians and singers and performers in general that are over here that are dying for these spots. I understand the exposure does help. It does help because I can't tell you how many times I went to go just for a jam session and somebody came up afterward and said, "Hey, I really like the way you play. Would you be interested in playing this birthday party or this wedding?" And it's happened multiple times, but just the fact that you have to trade exposure for that amount, that amount of money today, and knowing
Yeah.
how many talented people like yourself included that would have to deal with something like that today. I hope that changes because it's funny how much we'll pay for things online today, how much we'll for movies and for even for like now digital concerts and things, how much money we'll pay, but yet to actually hear somebody in person, we're giving everybody chump change. I hope that changes soon because we need live music. It's so important, and it's what honestly, especially for our people in particular, it really
Yeah.
gives people the right image. If done right, gives us the right
Yeah.
image in the public eyes. What was Halloween like growing up? Because we've been telling so many great stories. What was Halloween like in New York, or what was fall like in New York when you were
Well,
growing up?
I will talk about our years in Queens. Back then, in those years, it was safe to walk around. In those years, I don't know if everybody kept their doors unlocked. I'm sure a lot did. I don't know if mommy and daddy did. Don't know. But in those years, kids were safe. You could walk around. So it was fun. We would get dressed up. I don't remember what I dressed as, and always came back with the full bags of candy. It was a mixed neighborhood. Us, Italian, Cuban, Jewish, all kinds of people, all kinds of white collar, blue collar, and everybody got along. There was no crime like they got today, so it was great. I can't remember a specific Halloween thing. I don't want to lie and make anything up, but I do remember going around trick-or-treating, but it was fun, but that wasn't, the most important time for us. It was more of the bigger holidays, the Thanksgiving and the Christmas, the Easter, when there was, more fun and things like that. Birthday parties, the kids would sometimes, they would have the parties, the parents would make it in their homes for the local kids. And I remember do you remember Pin the Tail on the Donkey?
Oh, of course, I played it multiple times.
That was always a must at all of the parties. It was great. It was fun. The little gifts they'd give, the toys. Even if it's someone else's birthday, everybody gets a little something, so they go home happy. Good memories of those years. Better times, I think, for everybody.
I believe.
I've said that before, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's been sort of like the consensus, like all around. Even when it came to people that were our age, what's it called? We even say this back then. It was a different time, especially for even myself and Raquel. There were more people around. People were more open to actually being around each other, and I would hope that eventually, in time, people get back to those older ways and those values and starting to treat people a little bit more nicer and a little bit more welcoming. But
yeah,
outside of the parties and outside of the trick-or-treating, I know for a fact they had on television probably some great movies and television shows. And during the time of year.
Not just for Halloween. And, we here in New York, I remember even in the 50s, there used to be a station, Channel 11, WPIX, and it was called every Saturday night, Chiller Theater. And every Saturday night, it would be scary movies, even if they was in black and white. Oh, my God. The Terror from Beyond Outer Space and The Forbidden Planet and, of course, Werewolf and Dracula and all those amazing things from back then. They had lots of nice, scary things in recent years, too, with amazing effects. But as a kid, even without special effects and seeing those things in black and white, they scared the heck out of you, even back then.
I believe it. And it's funny you mentioned that because you and I have had so many conversations talking about films, kind of sending each other links to other films too. Was there one movie that you really enjoyed, like one particular horror film that stuck with you growing up?
Oh, my God. There's never just one. Because I love seeing them no matter, let me think. The Crawling Eye.
Okay. Now that one I've yet to see, and I guarantee a lot of other people probably haven't. If you have seen this, great. I'm so glad, whoever's listening has seen this. But if you haven't seen this movie, what's this movie about? Oh,
well, it was made, I think, in the early 50s, and it was about on a mountain in Switzerland, in an isolated area. They didn't know that some alien race there, and it's been going around killing people. I'm not going to give any big details, and it's vicious, it's dangerous, it's causing all kinds of problems, and they find out the hard way what this thing is, an enormous, it looks like an octopus, but it has one big eye in the center of what would be its face. You don't see a mouth, just all those the round big head, like an octopus, like a Brussels sprout, it reminded me. And with all the long tentacles. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's a scary one. I'm not going to give away, because anybody who haven't seen it, they got to watch it. And I don't like to give it away. It scares me even till today. The music, the sound effects. I think they showed it on Svengoolie not too long ago.
Huh. Well, I gotta watch that one. Now that the fact that you recommended that one, I'm gonna make it a point to watch it, because there's so many great horror films that come out. Honestly, that's one of the biggest. I don't know if you know this, but like a lot of times they say, if ever you want to break into the industry in general, the entertainment industry, film, they say start in horror, because there's always something coming out. And I gotta say, the amount of creativity that they have today with horror films, they're just repeating the same things that have came out in the last maybe 30 years. I've realized there's very little. You never see any monster movies anymore, and those were so much fun. I've realized so much fun.
Yeah.
The design, the character design, and the music. That was really the thing that I think about too. I wish that the scores were a lot more rich. But then again, a lot of movies today lack that rich, the sound of music that they used to have back then, and it's just. I definitely have to check this film out. I definitely have to.
I can message you a whole list of things that maybe you've seen, maybe you didn't, but I can put a list together. The ones from the 50s or the 60s. Hold on. Oh man, I'm trying to think of one that was from around 1969. I can't. Equinox. It's in color, but it has to do with demons and another dimension, and it's great. Some of these special effects are pretty good, but it was scary the first time I saw it. Did you ever see it?
That's another one. See, you're getting me with these. I gotta say, this is why I'm so glad you and I have been keeping in touch, because you know all the good ones. You got them all hidden away. Like I said, like you said, give me a list. I would love to take some time out and watch.
Definitely, I'll tomorrow. I'll you know me. I always do what I say I'm gonna do.
That's right.
I'll sit down. I'll write the list. And either I'll type it on Messenger, or I'll take a photo of the list and I'll messenger it or email it to you. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yes. With all the modernization, they can make great special effects now. I give them that. But there was something like Ray Harryhausen and all that work he put, and there was a quality that went into those old films that they can't match today.
You're so right, because I mean this, I think you and I are connected telepathically, because right when you started mentioning this stuff, I'm thinking, I was immediately, Ray Harryhausen popped in my head. Because you and I have talked about him to an extent on multiple occasions, because of just how amazing his work is and how much he's inspired so many special effects artists, even today. And I will say, if you haven't had a chance to check this out, it's on Amazon Prime, but they may have clips of these episodes on YouTube, I'm guessing. But if you look up, what is this now? Look how I'm blanking on this show. Creep Show, if I'm not mistaken. It is.
I have a couple of the movie videos, the DVDs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The number 1 and number 2. That's with, they made a television series based on those films. So it's almost like it's like a Tales from the Crypt, essentially, or like a Twilight Zone to some extent. But it's basically like short horror stories. Like you get either 2 or 3 depending on the episode. I think it's usually 2 for the most part. And it's in that same
Tales from
vein.
the Dark Side is another series. I have the DVD for all those things that you mentioned, including the remakes of the series Outer Limits. Because they had 3 separate the old one, then in I think in '86, and then again around the late '90s or 2000.
Got you. Yeah.
I think it was the Outer Limits. Yeah.
Wow, that's something. And I'm so glad I'm so glad you know your stuff about this, because it's the truth. Like once you're really like, would you consider yourself a monster kid? Because it sounds to me like you are. Definitely you.
Oh yeah. Me and my older brother, whenever he comes to visit here for a weekend once a year, I always have. I have a very big collection, and we just, veg out watching for the days that he's here. We just veg out watching nonstop until it's time to go to sleep that night. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
We both love it. He loves it. I love it. He's 2 years older than me.
Huh. It's the same thing as Raquel and me. Same thing. I'm 2 years older than her. And it's funny though. It's like pulling teeth to get her to sit in with me and watch a horror movie, because she's
I'm scared of everything. I'm too afraid.
That's how she's always been though, from young.
The only time my brother got freaked out, he was grossed out. I bought the DVD, Drag Me to Hell. And the part where the girl got the bloody nose and it sprayed on her boss. When Al saw that, he went, no more. Please change it. Poor darling. that was major gross.
Oh my gosh. No, and it's funny, I'm guessing you finished it through and you saw what happened during the funeral, right?
I sit through the whole thing. For him, I took it off and I put on something else.
Yeah.
But sure, I got, if you ever do come to Manhattan for a visit, you'll see. For decades, I've been collecting DVDs. Love it. Who wants to go to a theater? I don't. No way. Here in the comfort of my own place, you got it made in the shade.
No, I don't blame you. And that's how I've been watching movies for the longest. I purposely bought myself a bigger screen too, just so I could watch them a little bit bigger and get a little bit of like that theater effect, a little bit. But nah, honestly, it's funny you mentioned too Drag Me to Hell, because that's one of those movies that so many people, I can't tell you how many people just in like the horror community alone have said, oh, you're Rom? And I'm guessing you had to have seen Drag Me to Hell. What did you think of it? And they're, constantly asking me my opinion on that one. And I just sit and I laugh and I think to myself, it's just really, they took it to the extent of, this old Puri Juvi had just one bad day and it just kept going. But it was just so overplayed, in my opinion. So overplayed. So, yeah.
Yeah. I loved it a lot.
What's shaking, OVD fans? This is Pierce Horvat, co-founder of Dead Scared Entertainment. Raquel and I are so glad to have you listening to each and every episode of Verda Darano, and would greatly appreciate it if you'd give us a 5-star rating and leave a positive review on whatever platform you tune in from. This will help us reach more fantastic fans just like you and make the shadows just that much more friendly. We put a lot of effort into this, and all our content, including drawing videos, true paranormal experiences, and even more, is all accessible at deadscaredentertainment.com. And if you'd like to reach us through the ether and contact us regarding content ideas, general questions, or just to say hello from the other side, slither or swoop your way over to the Contact Us page on deadscaredentertainment.com. Thank you for listening. And now, back to your favorite bone-chilling broadcast, O Verda Darano. Do you believe in ghosts and vampires and aliens and werewolves?
Oh, definitely. Oh, that real story that I, put on your early, your thing a few months back,
Yes.
that really happened. And yes, I do believe in all of those things. I don't know one Roma who would turn around and say no, that they don't. I think they're pretending to be brave if they, say, oh, no, like Ray Parker in his song, I ain't afraid of no ghosts, liar, liar, pants on fire. And sure I do. All kinds of things exist that we don't know about. Just because you don't see them don't mean that they're not there.
You're right. And one thing that I wanted to ask you in particular, because a lot of people, it's a catch-all term, I realize, at least among our people, but maybe I would like to hear from your opinion. When people refer to, or when you hear Roma speak of a mulo, if you had to explain this to somebody, what would it be, or what are the the possibilities of what it can be?
Mulo is the spirit, a dead spirit. It can be a ghost, whether they're family or not. Chojano is another Romani word for ghost. Mulo, chojano, those two words. So when they talk about mulo, mule, plural, that's dead serious stuff. Yeah.
So what makes it so dead serious in that case? Why?
Well, it could be that they, experienced it in maybe in the old days. Maybe it doesn't happen so much now, but maybe when things were more old world, a lot of Roma, when they were still traveling around in the camps, there were stories about those kind of things. And, just because you settle in a house doesn't mean you can't have something there. A lot of the homes, you don't know what happened there before you moved in, especially if they're real old homes. Some of them can be a couple of 100 years old. Imagine how many different peoples was living in it.
Mm.
Before I moved into this apartment 27 years ago, I did a blessing with the incense and the things. I cleansed it. I blessed it. Some other people, one was Roma, the other wasn't. They had me come and bless their new home when they moved in. Twice for the Roma guy in New Jersey.
Mm.
I went out to his place for him and his wife and their doggy, and brought my things. I was visiting them too. We're friends, but they wanted me to do a blessing, and I did. Because you just don't know. You never know. A lot of people will have the priest come. You can do both. Have the priest and, the Roma can make the blessing themselves.
Very true. So when you are blessing a home or your home in the Romane way, what do you usually bring? What does that ritual look like? Or what do you do?
Oh, well, I have the incense, any kind of incense. Some people buy the sweet grass. I forget the name of it, and they call it smudging. I don't use that term. You go from room to room, just praying as you're, using the incense. Some people have a kind of a small church incense holder with bells that dangle from it. Mine was a little apartment, and for him too, the Roma, I came with some incense. I asked them to use their broom there's a part of it where you want to sweep the bad dirt out of the door.
Yeah. That's
That's what the broom is used for. You after the blessing, you don't have to sweep the whole place, but you do some sweeping, and you're taking it outside, and you put it outside on the street, on the door, away from the house. It's symbolic of getting rid of, what might be there.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's something that a lot of Roma do here, like within my family even too, till today. A lot of Roma actually do go about it, as you said, kind of using both a priest as well as doing their own blessing as well.
Yes.
I've actually had a couple of my friends, like and my Roma cousins, they actually called me over to actually do the blessing of their home, just because. And it's honestly it's a beautiful it's a beautiful honor to do that, and they know how much it really meant to me to be able to do that for them, to bring in nothing but good luck and happiness in their homes. But the funny thing is that we're talking about this stuff, and you're right, totally. There are it's honestly, to me, I find it necessary to do these types of things to bring in good energy. But I know you have some stories about ghosts and about some instances on your own. Could you tell us some of those stories?
Well, not as frightening. Aside from that thing, that was an actual ghost. That thing that I relayed on your program a couple of months ago.
There's a good chance that somebody may not have heard that. So if anything, would you be willing to tell us that story again?
Oh, sure, I can do that again right now.
Go for it.
Okay. You want me to just go into it right now?
Go for it.
Okay, great. So, like I said, we spent a few years living on Long Island, much further away from New York City, and where I had gone to. It was the junior. Was it? It was the high school. I remember, and they had a big sports field, and the sports field, the track, was surrounded by the woods. And this happened when I was about, I'm going to say, anywhere between 17 and 19 years old. And so it was nighttime, and me and one of the school friends, we went down to this track. She had not said anything to me about it, So, okay, fine. And it was pitch dark, not too many street lights or anything. We start walking towards the center of the track. It was enormous, with the dark woods surrounding the place, and we were just standing there. And I have a very strong sixth sense, empathic, and I sensed something, and I looked, and right in front of where the woods start, what was it, maybe 50 yards away from us. And I look, and I see this glowing thing. It was legs walking, but it wasn't the whole body. It was the lower half of the body. That's all I was seeing. The lower half of the body glowing. You could see the legs moving, nothing else. And I said, what the hell is that? And she said, okay, Petey, slowly we're going to turn and we're going to boogie out of here. We ran, and in those days, I was a very fast runner. Got up to the street where there was one light and turned around, looked back at it, and even from the distance could still see those glowing walking legs. And I waited I went home. The next day, she had told me that it was that a young kid had died in the woods. I don't know the details, but that was definitely a mulo, yes. The next day I went back, because it was nice, broad daylight, sunlight. I went back. I walked across the field to the place where I remembered exactly where, and I started into the woods just a couple of feet, and it looked like, everything was flat. That area where it had disappeared into the woods, you could see something looked very strange about it. Crushed, burned, something like that. And I'll never forget that. Yeah, and I'll say again, Miri mulende me na chochavaavtuke. On my dead, my ancestors, I am not lying to you. Yeah.
Wow.
Chachi paramisi. That's a true story. Yeah.
And it gives me, honestly, it gave me chills again thinking about that, because like you said, it was probably that little boy. It's crazy how as much as we would think, as modern of a society as we are today, that why believe in things like that? But it's so true. There's things that still linger. Do you have other stories for us?
One, it's a human monster I can tell you about,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Sure, go for it.
It was in the late 50s. I'm thinking maybe I was 7, maybe about 7. I was born in 53, so maybe it was between 58, 59, and it was the summer, and we were living in Queens, had the little house, and in those years, I will tell you, in those years going to the school, there was a Polish guy, Mr. Kajawa, and he used to dress in all black suit, black topper hat, and he would drive a bunch of us kids in a pool to the school, and I think he brought us home in the afternoon. That I don't remember. So one day I was sitting on the grass a couple of doors down from Mommy and Daddy's home. And I'm just sitting. I was always alone most of the time. So here I am, the little girl, and I'm sitting there, I'm enjoying and who appears and approached me? Who do you think it was?
It was him.
Mr. Kajawa. He sees me there, he approaches me, and just a few feet he stops short, and he asked me, would I like to go in his car for a ride? And the Roma kids, we got that built-in radar. Something is wrong.
Exactly.
As little as I was, I sensed the evil, and this is a da na, but we're also Roma kids. We think on our feet, and immediately I went into that mode, and I went, oh no, I'm sorry, Mr. Kajawa, I can't. Mommy's expecting me home now. Gotta help her prepare our dinner. And he didn't get nasty or anything, but that's the human monster. I sensed it right away. I ran back home. I don't remember if I told Mommy and Daddy about it. I don't know if I did or not, but we never saw him again. And he didn't drive us again after that. Maybe he got himself finally in trouble. But when I told Mommy about it, a few years before she passed, she was in shock. She was in shock because I am very closed-mouthed. I keep a lot inside and a lot to myself, and I don't tell family, things. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's a lot of people who are like me, but that's a story of a human monster.
Huh.
Yeah. Tamarelle so devil. Yeah. Very bad. Even a predator in those decades. It's always existed. It's worse now. Now they do. It's terrible, but there have always been human monsters, and I will take the vampire and a ghost and a werewolf, mulo, whatever. I would rather deal with them any day other than dealing with a human monster. Trying to think of one more thing that happened to me. It wasn't a human, or one time here in this apartment a couple of decades ago, I was asleep. I wasn't feeling good. Probably had the flu. I had my little Pomeranian dog Binky and my cats. Binky was sleeping on my bed. He would growl at strangers. He just, wanted mommy, and that's it. But we were both asleep. He was sleeping at my feet, and I wasn't feeling well. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I used to have a night light I kept on. I woke up with a jerk out of my sleep, and on the wall, I saw shadow outlines of two humans. Two human shapes you could see because of the nightlight, and I jumped up, I grabbed something, and I went over to attack them, and I stopped in my tracks. I saw that they were just shadows on the wall, and then I said to myself, no, hold on a minute. Binky didn't get up. If there was something there, he would have been growling, and he wasn't. He was fast asleep. But that shook me up. You wake up and you think you see something.
Oh, without a doubt. I can't tell you how many times I had instances like that too. Honestly, you had me for a second there. I'll be honest, you had me for a second. I'm thinking, well, what was she encountering at that point? Because it's different when the shadows actually come after you, and it's a very spooky experience. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's a very spooky experience, but you already kind of hinted at this prior, as we were talking, but I'm guessing it's safe to say that you feel that the Roma have a connection to, like you said, like a sixth sense, or the ability to sense things, or having that connection to otherworldly, supernatural energies, essentially. Do you really believe this?
Oh, yeah. You're going to ask me, do I believe that Roma? Yes. I think that a lot of races, indigenous people, who especially are very, even if it was in the past, but even though settled, it still can be continued, have a special, what's the word, to be attuned or in tune with nature and spirits seen and unseen. Some have more ability and connection than others. Some might not have any connection at all, but I think that most indigenous people who were nomadic, even at some point and not anymore, who were close to the earth, who lived in the woods and out in nature, I think there is a special gift within. Yes, I do believe that.
And you know what? we're right with you on that one, because based on your stories and the fact that you were able to sense that when, like now, what was that, Mr. Kachava, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah.
He was like 10 feet away from me, and just the aura and the way he spoke with me, and, you know, and it was totally out of place, you know, creep. If it was to happen now, I'd just give him a kick in the pele, and that would end the story.
Yep. That's for sure.
Do it at this age now, I don't think so. You know, try that nonsense. But I'm grateful I was able to think on my feet. I think a lot of Roma are, you know, even not just the Roma kids, but the adults too. You're in a situation and they got to think fast for protection.
If there's anything that, you know, a message that you would like to leave our listeners with, something that words of wisdom you can say.
Well, you know, it's. I'm going to direct this to our people.
Yes.
It can be for anybody, actually, but, you know, this is about our people, so it'll be directed and specifically at, you know, the music Roma people. For myself, you know, in the early decades, I would only perform on the weekends. During the week, I would do typing and word processing Monday to Friday in an office. This is because in those decades, and even now, there was never a lot of gigs for our kind of music. In those decades, people thought gypsy music was either Hungarian banda or flamenco. And so all through the decades, until it got more popular, I think in the 80s, 90s, the Romani music. And it was always necessary because I worked during the office to make sure that you got the steady income to put the bread on the table and the roof over the head. Yeah. My advice to, you know, the musician Roma, it's great to want to, you know, play and perform and have the gigs, but always have something to back you up. Have another skill, a career that you could always fall back on and use when times or you know, when a dry spell, that's what the word is, when a dry spell comes along, so you'll always be able to take care and provide for yourselves and the families. You know, then you won't have to worry about it. The more skills and things you can fall back on to get, you know, a job, even if it's not a real career that you want, you know, at least it's there to help you out. I'll give that as advice.
Well,
because I think that's good, because this is something I did for myself. I wouldn't recommend anything that I don't do myself.
I am so glad that we had this time to sit and talk together. Piroska, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And we're going to end this as we usually end all of our episodes of Verda Darano. You want to give it a shot?
All right. Giakor manga tuke baktalotrom prekotunyaripe.
Until then, I wish you safe travels through the darkness.
You same to both of you. I had a great time. Glad I could help. And, I appreciate all your kind words. And I wish you continued luck. And Bach Sastipe, Loshipe, Tai Dostalove, Mindig Tumenge. Okay?
Same to you,
Same
Piroshka.
to you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You have a wonderful night, and we'll be in touch probably in a little bit after this, knowing us.
Okay. God bless. Take
God
care.
bless you. This broadcast of Verda Darano was brought to you by the talents of Pearson Raquel Horvath, creators of Dead Scared Entertainment, with the help of Piroska Racz. You've been listening to a production from Dead Scared Entertainment, where terror is our tradition. Good night.